In Search of a Cosmic Tone, Johannes Kepler. How does the human being hear a cosmic tone? Does hearing it mean to resonate, as the classicists believed, with the divine logos in this very human body, whilst the world by comparison seems filled with noise? What is it like when this unshakable faith in the cosmic tone leads to ostracism and persecution? Let us perceive this cosmic tone as resonance with the divine will. Such a cosmic tone must be sought in freedom, with unwavering steadfastness. It cannot be heard in an environment of systemic, scientific, societal or religious dogma, although to the true esotericist, the tone is everywhere, even when there is rigidity. This sound will resolutely find a way to live in human souls, souls that are just as resolute. It will teach the soul humility, flexibility, reverence, and strength, or it will remain elusive. It will strengthen the spirit, for its very nature is spirit. Materialistic egos will perceive this tone as a threat and will try and fight it. But it is not in the nature of this cosmic tone to fight or to even have an ego. The cosmic tone purifies the ego. The cosmic tone is consummated in the I am, which is the ultimate mantra and the ultimate music. Have you ever been ostracized or excluded because you dared to think freely? Was it because you heard an inner voice, a sound, a human tone that seemed much bigger than you, something you could not explain rationally but were compelled to follow? In his 59-year lifespan, Johannes Kepler, 1571 to 1630, experienced ostracism, expulsion, excommunication, plague, witch trials, religious war, the death of a wife and 3 of his children. He also suffered from crippled hands and poor vision, yet the theme of his life was harmony, harmony in adversity. As a child, Kepler experienced the harmony of numbers. He astounded adults with his mathematical abilities. He was also in awe of the harmony of the starry realm, and was fortunate enough to live in the most exciting time of astronomical discovery to date, the time of Copernicus, Galileo, Tycho Brahe, and the invention of the telescope. Kepler is best known for his 3 laws of planetary motion. Because of this, he appears to be a thoroughly scientific man, and indeed he was. But actually, science prefers not to talk about his main interest, the harmony of the cosmos. By the 17th century, this theme had been relegated to the domain of Platonic philosophy, not science. Kepler, however, insisted on a scientific method, an Aristotelian approach to a Platonic theme, a marriage of earthly empirical knowledge with the intuited wisdom of the heavens. Religion was just as important to Kepler as science. After graduating from the University of Tübingen, he wanted to become a minister, but was persuaded instead to become a teacher. Although a Lutheran, Kepler had his own unique views on God. He followed the heliocentric view of Copernicus, believing the sun to be the principal source of motive power in the universe. For not wavering in his beliefs, he was refused the Eucharist in church and was eventually excommunicated. He heard how his colleague Galileo was forced to face the Roman Inquisition, and he experienced religious persecution firsthand when his own mother was arrested and accused of being a witch. For that, she spent 14 months in prison. In the last years of his life, Kepler witnessed the horrific Würzburg witch trials in which 900 people were executed. Yet he died hopefully in peace, having proved to those who would listen that despite the apparent dissonance of life, there is indeed an underlying harmony in the world and beyond. Kepler provided convincing proof of a harmonious, musical geometric universe. He empirically proved Plato's vision. After him, the inevitable fragmentation of science, art, and religion set in. Kepler's first attempt at finding mathematical proof of the harmony of the spheres was a geometric construction using the Platonic solids. The cube, tetrahedron, octahedron, dodecahedron, and icosahedron would be imagined as fitting between the spheres of the planets. This model, however, assumed that the planetary orbit was circular in shape. Kepler later disproved his own theory and that of every astronomer since Ptolemy with the first and second laws of planetary motion. The planets moved not in a circular orbit, but in an elliptical one. An elliptical orbit, however, presented a philosophical problem. It did away with the divine perfection of a circle. Every culture, religion, and especially the Pythagoreans revered the circle, and in an age of severe religious intolerance, it would be difficult to convince anyone of a rather awkward, mistaken shape, such as that of an ellipse, even if supported by science. But with the publication of arguably his greatest work, Harmonicus Mundi, in 1619, Kepler had found a property of the ellipse that was even more perfect than that of a circle. The geometry of the planetary ellipse was musical. There was, after all, a divine plan behind the ellipse, and it seemed harmonious proportions were the key. God was a Pythagorean and a musician. In simple terms, the great discovery was as follows. In an elliptical orbit, the path of each planet is punctuated by 2 points of perihelion, where it comes closest to the Sun, and 2 points of aphelion, where it is furthest from the Sun. Kepler calculated the distance covered by a given planet in 24 hours at each of these points. Due to the gravitational pull of the Sun, the planets moved faster at perihelion than at aphelion. The distance covered at perihelion and aphelion was expressed as a ratio. In every instance, he found a simple whole number ratio that could also be expressed as a concordant musical interval. he mainly found ratios that corresponded with the major chord. Furthermore, the aphelion or perihelion of one planet, for example Mercury, was in harmonious proportion with another, for example Venus. If all the ratios of the solar system were played together, let's say in the key of C, a wonderful concordant sound arises. Please see diagram. For those who may doubt the accuracy of early 17th century telescopes, or who suspect that Kepler was trying too hard to squeeze the numbers into a Platonic ideal, Kepler's findings have since been proven to be more than accurate. Kepler himself noted some deviations from harmonic ideals, but these have actually been proven to be less deviant than Kepler thought. The real proof of Kepler's discovery, however, lies in the fact that the so-called newer planets, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, unavailable to Kepler's telescope, also obey the same basic harmonic principles. Scientists may consider the harmonic ratios of perihelion and aphelion as having no real significance. To imagine there could be any soulful or musical properties inherent in a planetary orbit is certainly pushing the scientific paradigm. But as we shall see later, similar musical laws appear not just in the orbits of the planets, but in crystals, chemistry, biology, the human form, and internal body rhythms. The proportions of the major chord appear regularly in these phenomena. Anyone who trivializes or overlooks such consistent musical evidence is, in fact, unscientific. Kepler himself was convinced that musical harmony lies at the root of creation. In his worldview, geometry exists before creation. But geometry, in turn, is a product of a divinely ordained harmony. In Harmonicus Mundi, Johannes Kepler writes, "Music in the absolute sense is the invisible geometry of the cosmos, a delicate tracery of frequencies that harmonize with each other and from which all matter manifests." Kepler's discovery encourages us to think radically differently from the traditional scientific way, which is characterized by causal thinking and quantifying all material phenomena. Kepler does not have the cause, but the end point, harmony, underpinning his research. Being convinced of a universal law of harmony, he then finds a solution to prove it. For the scientist, the musical intervals are maybe a charming result of the elliptical orbits. For Kepler, the orbits have been bent into an ellipse by the musically harmonious will of the Creator. His spiritual conviction of a harmonious universe and relentless pursuit to prove it was a gift we are just beginning to unpack. A scientifically provable universal harmony is something we could certainly do with right now. But will anyone listen?